travel news. For January 15th, 2025, we talk about the TSA's phased rollout of Real ID enforcement beginning in May 2025, with warnings and flexible measures before full compliance becomes mandatory in 2027. But before we begin, I'm Brandon with the Adept Traveler, an award-winning travel agency that makes travel so easy. Even a blind traveler like myself can do it. And now, Today in Travel. The Real ID Act has been a long time coming, but its enforcement is finally approaching. Two recent announcements from the Transportation Security Administration outline the May 7th, 2025 deadline for requiring Real ID compliant identification at airports and federal facilities. These updates detail how the regulation will be implemented, the challenges ahead, and the potential impact on travelers. Real ID is a federal initiative designed to standardize identification requirements across the United States. Originally passed in 2005 in response to security concerns following 9/11, the Real ID Act establishes minimum security standards for state-issued driver's licenses and identification cards. Compliance with these standards ensures that IDs used for federal purposes, such as boarding a domestic flight or entering a federal building, meet the baseline level of reliability. Real ID compliant IDs are equipped with advanced security features, including anti-counterfeiting technology and enhanced identity verification protocols. These measures aim to reduce fraud and strengthen national security. While the Real ID Act was signed into law nearly 20 years ago, its implementation has been anything but straightforward. Originally scheduled to take effect in 2008, the rollout faced significant resistance from states as well as logistical hurdles. Extensions were granted repeatedly to allow states more time to issue compliant IDs, address privacy concerns, and update infrastructure. The deadline has been delayed several times over the years, with the most recent extension moving enforcement from 2023 to May 7, 2025. These delays reflect the complexities of implementing a nationwide program that affects millions of travelers. Despite the setbacks, the federal government is now moving forward with a clear timeline to ensure full compliance by May 2027. The TSA recently outlined its phased approach to enforce Real ID requirements designed to provide flexibility while travelers adjust to the new rules. Starting on May 7, 2025, passengers will need to present a Real ID compliant driver's license or a federally approved alternative, such as a passport, to board domestic flights. During this initial phase, TSA agents may issue warnings or apply flexible measures, allowing some passengers with non-compliant IDs to proceed after additional identity verification. However, by May 2027, full enforcement will take effect, and non-compliant IDs will no longer be accepted under any circumstances, ensuring strict adherence to the new federal standards. According to the TSA, Real ID compliance is critical for enhancing security and reducing vulnerabilities in identity verification. TSA representatives have emphasized the importance of preparing travelers for the transition to avoid bottlenecks at security checkpoints. For travelers with a Real ID or federally approved alternative, the transition should be seamless. Security checkpoints will accept these forms of identification without issue, ensuring a smooth boarding process. However, travelers without a Real ID may face delays. TSA agents will need to use additional procedures to verify their identities, which could slow down lanes and lead to frustration. Those without compliant IDs may even be denied boarding if they lack an alternative form of identification. The TSA's phased approach will offer some leniency initially, but full compliance will eventually be mandatory. If you're unsure whether your current ID is a real ID compliant, look for the star symbol in the top right corner. This indicates that your ID meets federal standards. If your ID does not have this symbol, it is not compliant, and you'll need to obtain a new one. To get a real ID, you'll need to visit your state's Department of Motor Vehicles, prepare by gathering required documents, which typically include proof of identity, such as certificate of birth, proof of your Social Security number, and proof of residency, such as a utility bill or lease agreement. Checking your DMV's website ahead of time can help you understand the specific requirements for your state and streamline the application process. If you don't have a real ID, several other forms of identification can be used for federal purposes. These include a U.S. passport, passport card, or Department of Defense ID. These federally issued IDs meet the same security standards as a real ID and can be used to board domestic flights or access federal facilities. Carrying a backup form of identification, such as a passport, is always a good idea for frequent travelers. As the Real ID deadline approaches, it's crucial for travelers to take proactive steps to ensure compliance. While the TSA's phased enforcement plan offers some flexibility, the transition will ultimately require full adherence to the new standards. Obtaining a real ID or carrying an alternative form of identification is the best way to avoid delays and disruptions. From my perspective, the key to navigating this change is preparation. Updating your ID and ensuring you have an acceptable alternative well ahead of May 7th, 2025 will save you time and stress. While the deadline may feel far off, starting now ensures you'll be ready for smooth and secure travel when the time comes. Today in Travel is brought to you by The Adept Traveler, an award-winning travel agency that specializes in making travel easier for everyone. From the novice to the expert, from the able-bodied to the disabled traveler, it's our belief that everybody deserves to travel better. Until next time, travel well, my friends.